The room is quiet, the kind of quiet that only comes when time itself seems to lean against the walls, waiting. A senior sits in that silence, surrounded by the faint hum of memories, photographs, worn books, letters folded too many times. And in the air, a question lingers. What must be spoken before the body grows too tired to carry it? This is not merely about words. It is about legacies, about the invisible threads that tie blood to blood, soul to soul, across generations. Carl Jung wrote that what is unspoken in one life returns as fate in another. The secrets, the unexpressed truths, the silent wounds. They do not vanish. They echo. They repeat. They ask to be named. And so, the elder who carries decades of storms and tenderness alike must decide. Will the truth remain buried, or will it be spoken into the light where healing can begin? Every conversation a senior begins with their family is more than dialogue. It is an act of individuation, of becoming whole not just for oneself, but for the lineage. It is shadow work expanded across generations. For what you do not face in yourself, your children will face for you. The first conversation is the hardest, and it begins not with others, but with silence itself. A silence that must be broken. Picture her, the matriarch, her hair silver like moonlight, her eyes deep rivers of memory. She sits across from her children, her voice trembling but steady. She does not speak of material wealth, though they expect it. She speaks of wounds. She names betrayals, griefs, and the mistakes she once tried to bury. She opens a vault of her own shadow, revealing not shame but courage, because until the shadow is named, it rules in silence. Until the grief is spoken, it poisons the roots of love. This is what Jung meant. What remains unconscious becomes destiny. A senior who dares confess her own darkness does not burden her children. She frees them. You, listening now, might feel your own chest tighten. What truths in your family have remained unsaid? What words hover on the tip of your tongue, unspeakable but burning? Can you feel how silence is both a prison and a shield? The conversation you avoid is often the one that saves a family from repeating the same old tragedy. The senior becomes the alchemist. She turns silence into gold. She turns confession into freedom. She proves that old age is not decay, but initiation. The initiation into timelessness. And when the words are finally spoken, when the shadow is laid bare, something shifts. The room breathes differently. Generations exhale. The burden does not disappear, but it becomes lighter, shared, carried by love instead of silence. This is the first of 5 sacred dialogues. And already you know, these conversations are not about convenience. They are about survival. The second conversation does not arrive with the way of confession, but with the tenderness of presence. It is a conversation of love and gratitude. Words that seem simple, yet so rarely spoken when they matter most. The elder sits in the dim light of evening, perhaps beside a window where dusk gathers slowly. Outside, the world is fading into night, and inside, the air is heavy with all that was given and never named. A life built on sacrifice, small and invisible, nights spent awake with feverish children, years spent working when the body begged for rest, endless quiet acts of devotion that no one remembers, yet without them, nothing would stand. And so, the senior must decide to break another silence, to speak love not as duty but as truth, to tell her children, her grandchildren, that they were not just obligations but blessings, that in the ordinary rhythms of cooking, cleaning, teaching, correcting, she found a meaning beyond herself. Jung believed that the anima, the inner feminine, lives through connection, through love that heals the rift between soul and shadow. In old age, when time runs short, the anima rises like a final gift, softening the voice, reminding the elder to give words that will outlast breath. Imagine the scene. A father, his hands calloused from decades of work, takes his son's hand, not as a teacher, not as an authority, but simply as a man who has loved deeply. His voice trembles as he says, "I am proud of you. I have always been proud of you." And suddenly, the years of doubt the son carried collapse into dust. A single sentence becomes salvation. Or a grandmother, with eyes that have seen too much, leans toward her granddaughter and whispers, "You are more than enough. You have always been enough." The granddaughter feels something crack open inside her chest, a wound she did not even know she had. These are the words that save souls. They are not lectures, not instructions, but blessings, spoken aloud before it is too late. And yet, here lies the provocation. How many of you have withheld such words? How many times have you thought them, but left them unspoken, assuming there would be time later? There is no later. There is only now, and now is running through your fingers like sand. Strong families are not built on perfection. They are built on express love. Gratitude is not a thought. It is an act of naming, again and again, until the soul knows it is seen. For when love is spoken, generations stand taller. When gratitude is given, resentment has no soil in which to grow. And when the elder dares to say, "Thank you for being mine," she does not just honor the past. She plants the seed of peace in the future. The second conversation teaches this, that love unspoken dies with the body, but love declared aloud echoes forever. And so, the elder becomes more than memory. She becomes voice. She becomes blessing. The third conversation rises like a river carrying the weight of history. It is the conversation of legacy and wisdom, not the legacy of property or wealth, but the inheritance of soul. For what survives a man or a woman is not the furniture they leave behind, not the savings in the bank, not even the land their name is written upon. What endures are the invisible treasures, the beliefs, the lessons, the scars, and the dreams. The archetypes of the family, warrior, healer, trickster, nurturer, are passed not through blood alone, but through stories spoken and heard. Carl Jung once wrote that to live without reflection is to live only half a life. The elder, standing at the twilight of existence, has already crossed that reflection. The years have carved meaning into their silence, and now the silence must be broken. Picture the elder gathering their children in the living room, where the air is thick with memory. The old armchair creaks under their weight. The fireplace glows with a quiet flame. One by one, stories unfold, of struggles endured when the family was young, of sacrifices made when no one was watching, of mistakes that nearly shattered everything but taught resilience stronger than steel. These are not stories told to boast, but to reveal the hidden architecture of survival. They are maps offered to those who will walk similar storms. Perhaps the father tells his son, "Do not fear failure. It is not the end, it is the teacher." Perhaps the mother tells her daughter, "Never give away your soul for love. If it is love, it will never ask." Perhaps the grandmother whispers, "Forgive quickly. Bitterness is a prison you lock from the inside." Each sentence is a torch, passed from one generation to the next. Each word transforms from memory into wisdom, from private pain into shared resilience. But here lies the danger. What if this conversation is never had? What if wisdom dies unspoken, and the younger ones are left to repeat the same mistakes, wandering blind through shadows already mapped by their elders? Then the cycle begins anew. Pain is recycled, trauma is inherited, lessons must be relearned. And so, the elder must decide to speak boldly of the storms, the triumphs, and the truths, to hand their children not perfection, but guidance soaked in humanity. Jung called this the individuation of the soul, the journey from unconscious repetition to conscious inheritance. When an elder shares their wisdom, they interrupt the unconscious cycle, offering the next generation a chance at freedom. Now pause and ask yourself, what wisdom do you carry, still locked inside your chest? What stories have you hidden, afraid they are too small or too shameful? Do you not see? These very stories might be the medicine your family needs. Legacy is not marble monuments or golden heirlooms. Legacy is a courage to say, "This is who I became, and this is what I learned." The third conversation teaches us this, that silence robs a future, but spoken truth nourishes it. When wisdom is shared, a family does not just survive, it evolves. The fourth conversation is the most fragile, yet the most necessary. It is a conversation of boundaries and forgiveness, a dialogue not of triumphs, but of wounds. Every family, no matter how loving, carries shadows, unspoken resentments, words once thrown in anger that linger like ghosts, choices that fracture trust, silence where affection should have lived. These shadows, when ignored, poison the roots of the family tree, and their venom flows into every new branch that grows. Carl Jung taught us that what we repress does not disappear. It waits in the unconscious, disguising itself, returning again and again until we face it. The elder who has lived long enough knows this truth. Pain left unspoken becomes inheritance, and trauma mutates into tradition. And so, at the dusk of life, the elder must summon the courage to speak of pain, not to reopen wounds, but cleanse them. This conversation begins not with accusation, but with stillness. The elder looks at their children, their siblings, their partners, and says, "We have carried hurts. Let us not pretend they did not exist." The silence that follows is thick, almost unbearable. Yet in that silence lies the possibility of healing. Perhaps a father admits, "I was too harsh. I thought discipline was love, but now I see the scars it left. Forgive me." Perhaps a mother confesses, There were days I withdrew into my own sorrow, leaving you alone when you needed me most. I see that now. Perhaps a son whispers back, I blamed you for what you could not change. I carried anger that belonged to fate. Not you. I release it. This is not weakness. This is not surrender. This is the highest form of strength. To confront the shadow, to name it, and to loosen its grip. Forgiveness here is not forgetting, nor excusing. It is a recognition that all human beings are imperfect vessels, wounded, yet capable of love. It is a decision to stop letting yesterday dictate tomorrow. Boundaries also rise in this conversation, for forgiveness without truth is fragile. The elder must model what it means to say, I forgive you, but I will not let this wound repeat. I love you, but love must not ask me to betray myself again. And in this, the family learns a holy balance, that love is not blind sacrifice and forgiveness is not weakness. This is individuation at the collective level, the family breaking the cycle, no longer slaves to hidden resentment, no longer chained to inherited bitterness. The archetype of the wounded healer emerges here, the one who's been hurt, yet transforms that hurt into wisdom, into light, into freedom. Ask yourself now, what unspoken wound sits quietly in the room when your family gathers? What forgiveness have you withheld, not because the wound was too great, but because your pride was too heavy? What truth do you still need to say, even if your voice trembles? For the fourth conversation whispers this eternal law. Families do not crumble from poverty, from illness, from storms outside their doors. They crumble from silence within. And when forgiveness and boundaries are spoken aloud, healing is no longer just personal. It becomes generational. The fifth conversation is the most sacred of them all. It is the conversation of love and mortality, a dialogue not about endings but about eternal continuity. Old age brings with it a silent knowledge. Time is no longer infinite. Each sunrise is a gift, each nightfall a reminder. The elder feels the nearness of the threshold, the door through which all must pass. But instead of hiding from it, the wise one invites the family to sit close, to face this truth together. Carl Jung once wrote that the second half of life is not meant for accumulation, but for relinquishment, for preparing the soul for a return to the source. And yet, so many families are unprepared, clinging desperately to denial, refusing to name what is inevitable. The elder knows better. They gather their children, their grandchildren, their beloveds, and speak not of fear, but of love. When my body grows tired, when my breath grows thin, know this, my love will not end. It will live in you, in your choices, in your laughter, in your very blood. Death is not absence. It is transformation. In this moment, mortality becomes less of an enemy and more of a teacher. It teaches urgency, to love without hesitation, to forgive without delay, to speak gratitude before silence swallows a chance. It teaches humility, that we are not the owners of time, only its stewards. The elder might leave instructions, not just for practical matters, wills, care, possessions, but for spiritual inheritance. They may say, do not mourn me with despair. Celebrate me with courage. Carry my stories, my values, and weave them into your own lives. Here, archetypes merge. The elder becomes a sage, passing down eternal wisdom. The family becomes a tribe, bound not just by blood, but by story and remembrance. And death itself becomes a threshold guardian, not a thief, but a guide, reminding all that life's beauty is sharpest because it is brief. For the children, hearing such words is both shattering and healing. To face the reality of mortality with love transforms fear into reverence. No longer do they see death as abandonment. They see it as a final teaching, the last act of courage, the reminder that love outlives flesh. The Stoics knew this too. Memento mori, remember you will die, not to frighten but to awaken. For when we remember the end, we live with more tenderness in the present. Ask yourself now, have you told your family how you wish to be remembered? Have you given them not only the map of your possessions, but the map of your heart? Have you freed them from the burden of guessing how to honor you by telling them with clarity and love? This fifth conversation is not about death. It is about love so vast that even death cannot dissolve it. It is about ensuring that when the elder departs, the family does not fracture, but strengthens. It is about giving them not just memory, but meaning. And so, the circle closes. The elder who has walked through all 5 conversations leave behind not just a family, but a legacy, a lineage of truth, healing, resilience, and love. And now the silence belongs to you. If the words have unsettled you, if they have stirred something ancient in your chest, it is because they were meant to. The 5 conversations are not about speaking to others. They are about speaking first to your own soul, daring to touch the places you've hidden, daring to let your family witness you not as a role, but as a being. Do not let this dissolve into the fog of another day. Share this message with someone you love, because every echo of truth that leaves your lips awakens truth in theirs. Subscribe, not for information, but for initiation, for more journeys into the hidden architecture of psyche, family, and fate. And if your heart feels a weight of silence too heavy to carry alone, write below what conversation you know must be spoken before time steals its chance. The world is waiting for women and men brave enough to speak, brave enough to remember, brave enough to begin.